Welcome to the second episode of the podcast. Today I've got my trusty assistant Paul, and we're going to be discussing all things equipment, assisting, career paths, all that sort of good stuff, and of course camera gear. But what I'll do first of all is I'll let Paul introduce himself and also introduce what the role of an assistant when working specifically with me is before we go too far into this.
I'm Paul. Hi. I've been assisting Scott, well, probably the last sort of couple of years, but I've known Scott for near on 20 years. Started working together on weddings many, many years ago. In regards to assisting for Scott, I would say probably number one, and probably most people who have assisted Scott before would say, is make sure he's got enough coffee.
Yep.
And good coffee at that, which we've got some today. But I think, importantly, working with Scott is, Scott's obviously got a very particular style, and it's known that style and how to achieve that quickly using the equipment that he's got. I'd like to think that I know pretty quickly on a shoot what sort of lighting you want and getting that set up, and then tweaking it based on your preferences. Also, sometimes acting as a buffer between other assistants or other people on set, because it can be quite overwhelming for you if you've got lots of people throwing questions at you.
Yeah, usually there's a creative director, an art director, a client, my agent, the digitech, the researcher asking questions, and then if we've got three assistants and all three of them are asking me questions, it works better if they ask you. And if you need to ask me, you ask me, but if not, then you normally know what's going on anyway. Okay, so obviously only been assisting me for a couple of years. We worked together on and off, assisting each other, helping each other. And we set up the studio together initially in 2016 with Dave as well, and then went our separate ways. Not because of falling out, I don't think.
No. Just I think you were the only one who actually put any proper effort into actually trying to make it work.
I think we're all at very different stages in life and career at that point as well, though. So before assisting me and also whilst assisting me, because Paul's not full-time employed salary, we bring him in when we need him as a freelancer. What else do you do?
Well, my main work is shooting university graduations, and then any studio shots of VIPs at the graduation, honorary doctorates, things like that, which can be captains of industry, people in education, and occasionally celebrities as well, from musicians to actors, comedians, authors. Photographed one yesterday, can't remember his name, but he's a Booker Prize winning author.
Nice.
Very nice chap, but wouldn't smile, which makes the job a little bit more tricky. Also do the weekends some sport, theatre, dance, that sort of thing. So a bit of a variety, and then occasionally a bit of commercial, but not as much as I used to do. When I started out, I used to do a bit of commercial, still life work, but not so much nowadays.
And because we met shooting weddings in, 2010?
Probably,
2009?
Yeah.
Somewhere around then? I was your assistant.
On the first shoot.
How useful was I?
You were good for carrying stuff around. But yes, that was... shooting Asian weddings.
With Hitesh.
Good old Hitesh.
I had his son in here actually working with me, Yash, a while ago.
Oh, I remember
really good.
About that big.
He's like a fully grown adult now, driving around in a big car. It's very strange.
Crikey. I remember, I think I turned up in my Jag.
Yeah, you had a Jag.
Smoking Marlboro Reds.
I turned up on a bus.
But then over the years, so we assisted each other. We did weddings together for a little while. And then we got the studio. I think we were both doing mainly portraits then, weren't we? A couple of jobs I remember doing, obviously in the studio and outside the studio. And then lockdown came and you changed direction. I think you started to move into food before then anyway.
I started to move into food, but then I completely rebranded my style in lockdown because I had nothing else to do. I think that the first time, I say you've been assisting me for the last 2 years, before then, the first big job you helped me on was my first ever ad campaign, which was for Premier Drums. Where I told them, yes, I had a studio and yes, I could shoot this. It was a full-on set build and everything. So I had a manager at the time that I paid rather than an agent, and she managed to procure me a studio on permanent lease above a bar, which was dangerous. Never have a studio up there. There was a lot of drinking back then. So we had that, and we did the shoot, and I had a 5D Mark I camera body and a MacBook Air with about 4 gig of RAM. And you turned up with everything else because I didn't own anything. I didn't own lights. I didn't own light stands, tripods, or lenses, or triggers. And I didn't even know how they worked. And I think you basically lit the entire shoot. Yeah. It was of Steve White, wasn't it? The drummer from The Who.
Yes.
Steve White?
No, from the Jam.
The Jam.
Jam.
I should know this stuff.
Yeah.
But he was a lovely guy. They're a client I worked with for years, actually. I don't work with them anymore. I think they've gone in different directions.
Yeah. I remember the pheasant on that shoot.
Yeah, so there's a pheasant. And there's another lady there as well with neon hair.
Oh, Vicky.
Vicky somebody, yes.
Yes.
She was lovely as well.
Yeah,
from
drummer. She's
Nordic.
Yes. Crazy lady. She's got her own band now touring, I believe.
Yeah. She's brilliant.
O'Neill? Vicky O'Neill?
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
That was the first shoot we did together. And you literally lit the entire thing because although I knew what I wanted it to look like, I had no concept of how to actually do it.
Well, luckily, I'd been consulting for a lighting manufacturer in Leicester, doing lighting workshops for them. And so I'd acquired quite a bit of kit over the years.
You had everything.
I think I had about 12 lights.
Yeah, I think we used them all as well.
Yeah,
it was a very lit set.
Yes, it was.
Which was good. And
it still looks good when you look back at it now.
It's okay. It's not got the depth I'd like it to have in hindsight, but it's okay. I'll see if I can get it to pop up on the screen at some point if you're watching the video version. Yeah. If you're listening to the audio one, it's a picture of a drummer in a library.
Yes, with a pheasant.
With a pheasant, which is built in my studio. But yeah, so Paul pretty much did that entire shoot technically for me. Yeah. I'd say is a fair assessment of it. I would not have got
you'd say, I want it to look like this. And then I'd go, okay.
And it kind of works similar now, doesn't it? I think I now know how to do it.
Yeah.
But I still say, this is how we want it to look. And then what do you do with that?
I mean, so obviously your style's changed. It's a very sort of bold, graphic, colourful look, hard shadows. So depending on the sort of shot, whether it's a hero shot or with some hands in, I'll know pretty much how to light it to get the look that Scott wants, and then just tweak it from there on.
Yeah.
I mean, initially everything just goes on full power.
And pretty much. Always on full power, and then adjust from there. You know? You can never have too much light, can you? So the work you do separate to this is the majority of your working life by a substantial amount. Like the work you do for me is a small percentage. As a like you come in and out. As and when. If you're free when we have a big job, you're always first on the list to be hired because Paul knows me and he knows how I like to work and how I like to light things. It's so much easier than getting somebody else in who doesn't, and then we get the other assistants to sort of work beneath you. Okay. So over the years we've worked together. We started off using your Bowens lights. Which are pretty decent actually. Yeah,
the old Gemini Spirits. 500 watts.
I've only just given and sold my ones last year because I didn't have space to store them anymore, but they were solid. I've still got the Quad 3000 pack back there and a couple of heads, which is nice. But over the years, in terms of lighting, the kit we've used, because I think you've used every brand of lighting kit?
Pretty much, from Lencarta, Godox to Photo.
What's the best?
I would say for consistency and knowing what it's going to look like, I would probably say your Broncolor kit. Photo, quality-wise is on par. Expense is a bit more than Broncolor, I think. But there's probably not as much old stuff around Photo. But I don't know, Broncolor seems to be more consistent in. It's easier to get the look that you want. I think with Broncolor. Photo is nice. It's got all the bells and whistles.
Because we used it on a shoot recently, but we had loads of colour misfires almost. Like the white balance came out weird on some frames and not others. Which is the easiest to functionally use?
Probably the Broncolor.
See, I think it is, but it's because it's what I use. So I'm always it's nice and easy. I know how it works. I mean, plus it's usually on max anyway, so it's not usually a case of turn it down or just move the light further away if it's too bright. Despite all the features, there's not really a great deal of functionality we really use in there, is it? It's just like power up, power down.
Yeah, it's the quality of light, I think.
Yeah, and the modifiers as well help. What about cameras that we've used? I mean, what cameras have you used over your career?
Oh, I've used initially my Mia 645.
Yeah. So the autofocus or manual?
Manual. With a waist level viewfinder and then another one. Polaroid back. Unfortunately, you can't get them anymore. The Polaroid for it, which is a shame because I'd love to use it again. And then I dabbled in digital with a Canon 300D, the silver plastic one, which was a horrible camera.
It's called a Rebel something in America, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. I think I shot my first wedding. I shot on that. I got back and discovered half of the wedding was missing on the card.
Oh,
yeah, because it hadn't written properly. But £200 later on software, I managed to get it all back.
Nice,
but that was not a nice feeling. First proper pro digital camera was a Canon 1D Mark III with a 1.3 crop.
Yeah.
A 24-70 and a 70-200 f4, which I've still got and is going strong.
Yeah.
But good old workhorse. Saw me through commercial work, weddings. The only downside to that, and the reason I've changed recently, is the weight. So I've gone mirrorless recently.
What are you using now then?
R5 and an R6.
Is that which one's which? One's a high res and one's
R5's I think 45 mega.
Yeah.
And then the 6 is probably about 12 or something, but it's good enough for most stuff.
Yeah.
But in the past for other clients, I've used Nikon, Sony, Fuji. I've got a little Fuji. That's my go-to camera to take on holiday because it's nice and small and light. But from a pro side, I would struggle because big fat fingers and little
small
cameras
buttons,
don't mix. That's what I like about the.
So which has been your, obviously like the newest ones are the best ones image quality wise, but which has been your favourite from like?
My favourite camera was probably the 5D Mark II.
Yeah.
And the Fuji S1.
With the really good skin tones.
Yeah, love the skin tones in the Fuji S1, about 4 megabytes, if that. But that was a beautiful little camera. Apart from you had to have 2 batteries in it, which was so annoying.
That's weird. I didn't know that. Yeah, I know that everyone who did portrait work back in the day used that camera. Because the skin tones were just perfect.
Yeah.
The 5D Mark II was good. I still got one of mine.
Yeah, I've still got one. The only thing wrong with it is the USB doesn't work anymore, but you can't tether it anyway, I don't think.
Oh, no, you still can.
Yeah,
mine's fully functional still.
Cool.
It's on its second shutter. Had about 500,000 shutter actuations on its second shutter.
Yeah, I think that was a game changer. I think mainly for video.
Yeah, it was the first time you could do affordable video.
Was it David Raval that came out with that first video?
No, it was Philip Bloom.
Philip Bloom?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Beautiful video.
Yeah.
And it was like, everyone was like, wow, shallow depth of field on video. And that lasted for years and years.
Yeah, every wedding, 5D Mark II's everywhere.
Yeah. In fact, they even think they shot an episode of, what's the Doctor's?
Grey's Anatomy. Or House, is it?
The whole episode of House was shot on 5D Mark II's, I believe.
Yeah. Good enough then, good enough now.
Yeah.
Pretty good bit of kit. So, I mean, the kit's it doesn't really change that much, does it, over the years?
At the end of the day, they're all doing the same job.
Yeah.
I think the only difference with new kit, with the mirrorless, the work I do, the eye tracking focus is a game changer.
Yeah.
But I think the only real difference for photography is probably the dynamic range. I think that's the only thing that's really changed. Size of file, the megapixels, they've been quite high for a while.
Yeah, it was quite a while ago, wasn't it? Nikon brought out a high resolution.
Yeah.
Well, I say high, it was only 30 something back then, but everyone was like, whoa, it's too much.
I think the increasing dynamic range is what has changed. And then the weight is probably a thing that's pushed some people over to mirrors as well.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I always found interesting when people complain about autofocus and things, when I shot the 5D Mark II, I was shooting a lot of work on tour with bands. And I'd be shooting in pitch black bars, and I wouldn't miss focus.
Yeah.
And I still don't understand why people are, the autofocus isn't good enough unless you've got this, this, and this. Is it that much better? Like, I've not used the autofocus on mirrorless. It was just easier.
I would say I think because it's focusing directly from the sensor, not a separate part. I don't know which bit to use. A normal DSLR. I think obviously the sensor's not active at the time. So certainly in the dark, it does focus a lot quicker because it's using the sensor straight away. That's what I found. And also the ISO. I mean, I've shot graduations at 64,000 ISO. in JPEG, and the noise for you print an 8x6, you can't see it.
Yeah, that's pretty useful.
So I think it's pretty impressive.
Because some of those places are dark.
Oh yeah, Coventry Cathedral.
Yeah,
pitch black.
I've shot at Coventry Cathedral actually for something years ago, and I was at like 3,200 ISO f1, a 50th of a second, praying I'd get something sharp. Yeah. Okay, so from an assistant's point of view, purely from an assisting standpoint, what are the difficult parts of a job, the worst parts of a job, the bits which the assistant sorts? What are the bits that without you, I'd be stuffed?
I would say the difficult part is probably, before, being that buffer between you and the client. Sometimes their expectations are a bit high, and it's easier. I think it's easier for me to say to them, "No, that's not going to work. You can't do that," rather than you coming out with it, because it's not a creative decision; it's a physics decision.
Yeah.
That can't work. So that can be a bit tricky, and dealing with I won't say inept assistants, but people who aren't sort of haven't got the basics. Sometimes, like you say, sometimes you have to get people in as a body.
Sometimes either a production company supplies assistants, which can be really hit and miss because they're often salaried staff, so they're not jobbing pros. Or it's just like, we need someone with they'll get a graduate in or something who, great, they've got a degree in photography, but they don't actually know anything. Which probably brings you to a good question. What is it you need to know to be able to assist, specifically me? I think it's probably the best way to answer it, otherwise it's quite broad.
You need to know how light works, the basics. How to get, if you have to particularly look, if you want hard shadows or soft shadows, if you want specular light or non-specular light, is knowing the basics. And it's surprising how many people don't know the basics. I think sometimes it's the thing that you just get in your head on how light works. That if you put a light there, you'll get this look. If you put a bounce in there, a reflector, I think that's probably the most important part, is just the basics. And then you don't need to know everything, but as long as you've got the basics in there.
Yeah, because often I'll ask you something like, "Oh, can we get rid of this reflection in the top left-hand corner?" And I'll just leave you to it. And then come back and hope it's sorted.
Where to put a flag. Sometimes you put something there and you think, "Whoa, wasn't expecting that." And no room is perfect. I mean, the studio's got white ceilings and white walls, so light is bouncing around all over the place. So you can't always predict it. But I've worked in completely black studios before, and it's a horrible working environment. It's great for lighting, but to work in.
Because I get asked a lot about this, like, how do you cope with the big windows and white walls and white ceiling? It's like, well, I don't get depression. It's like, I'd rather have to problem solve the lighting in here than have a black studio. Although next door is going to be dark grey.
But 18%?
No, much darker than that. Much darker. It's going to be mostly for video work, so you can really cut the ambience out. I think knowing the basics, inverse square law, different qualities of light, and also having a real good understanding of grip and how to rig things. It's
easy to. Last thing you want is something falling onto a set after you've set up the product in exactly the right place. I've had stuff fall over before because it's not been sandbagged down properly or got the right grip. But it's and also moving like a cat.
Yes, between all the light stands, it's like a ninja walk.
When I remember. We were shooting down in Southampton. I think we had 25 C stands around the set, plus glass shelves, and trying to move through that. It's
you don't want to be clumsy as an assistant. Clumsy assistants are
that's not good.
I don't get on so well with them. What is the stupidest thing you've seen me do on or outside of set?
I would probably say it was going back to when you were shooting. It was fashion. It was a local marketing magazine.
Something like that.
We had some models in, and we tried to do a shoot in the middle of St Martin's Square, I think it was, in Leicester, full of people walking past and expecting people to stay out of our way and get the shot done, and in a laundrette, if I remember.
Yeah, we did end up in a laundrette.
In a laundrette.
I'll see if I can find those pictures. I don't know if I've still got them. I'd imagine I deleted them in my big purge of I don't ever want to do this again. What's the worst thing you've seen me do in terms of like, I don't know, work related, not outside of work? What's like the worst or the worst trait I have on shoots?
I would say it's, to put it bluntly, not so much now, but used to be quite anal in having a backup for a backup for a backup for a backup. And I think quite a lot of imposter syndrome used to have. And I'd be thinking, why are we taking all this kit in my car for a portrait in a factory?
Because with the speed light, a couple of AA batteries. But let's pack everything.
Which have got better on. We still have lots of kit, and there is a backup. But I think it was always scared of something going wrong, and so you make sure all the kit was there. Because then, if something did go wrong, that was you then, rather than the kit.
And I think we've discussed this before, but like I got jobs way bigger than I should have done for my technical ability for at least the first decade of my career. Like my first ad campaign I shot, I didn't know how to use lights. And that continued for quite. I just somehow managed to bag really big jobs with no experience.
But I think that was the confidence you had, or that's what it came across. Was the confidence. I can do that. That's not a problem. And then worry about how to do it after.
Yes, and then realise I don't actually know how to do it afterwards. So in terms of assisting, like the days are quite long. How physically demanding is a day on set with me on a commercial shoot? Because they can go for 12, 16 hours.
It can be full on. Hence, I think one of the most important things, if you ever assist Scott, is coffee. Lots of fresh coffee on the go, protein shakes and whatever. And also make sure you got coffee yourself or whatever you drink, and stay hydrated, because it's easy to lose focus. So it can be hard work at the end of a shoot. Even just a 10, 12-hour shoot, you finish it and you're physically drained and emotionally drained.
Battered, aren't you, by the end of it?
It is quite physical at times, moving all the lights around, putting the sets together. But it's just that knowing you've got to be on the ball constantly. Make sure, like I say, everything's gripped properly. Because the last thing you want is stuff falling over and in the middle of a set.
Because I assume you have to also, and I don't know because I don't pay attention to this, but you need to make sure that you're eating and drinking, because by the time you're thirsty or hungry, it is too late. Whereas I'm nicely catered for, and every time I look down, there's a fresh drink ready for me, or like a new cup of coffee being made, or I'd forget to drink if you didn't supply me with drinks throughout the day, I wouldn't drink all day. And the same with eating. If someone doesn't say, Scott, come and eat some food, I'm so focused on the day that I wouldn't. But I assume you have to make sure not only do you feed and water me, but you get your own stuff.
I always make sure I've got a drink and a snack on me. Being diabetic as well, I have to make sure I've always keep blood sugars, which did crash a little bit at one shoot a few months ago.
Didn't your app disconnect or something?
I have a little thing on my arm which tells me what blood sugar is, and that disconnected, and it went because you're so focused on what you're doing, you lose track. But it is sometimes you forget. It's my job to make sure, say Scott has got food or drink. That it is easy to forget yourself, but it's another aspect of the job.
I think it's something people don't even think about, isn't it? Like making sure you're well rested, and that and it's very easy at the end of the job just to cane loads of beers. Because you get that relief of the stress has been so hard. It is so stressful. It's not like a normal job where you're going. You couldn't do it 5 days a week all year long. You'd be dead. But there's that crash at the end, and then I don't know about you, but I finish it and I'm like, right, a couple of cheeky tequilas, a couple of pints, and then before you know it, you're trying to get on a train back from London, and it's your legs aren't working. So in terms of equipment as an assistant, what do you, I don't even know, what do you turn up with on a job? Do you turn up with anything?
Not a huge amount, because he's got most stuff here, but I do have a little grip bag in the car, which has got, the most important, gaffer tape. I know you have your nice colourful gaffer tape.
Got a nice colourful ones,
the classic black gaffer tape, some super clamps.
Do you have a knife?
Bulldog clips. Oh, I've got a knife, got a... I can't remember what they're called now. Leatherman. Got a Leatherman.
I've got a Leatherman as well. Very good. Have to be careful travelling with those.
Yes, it's not a lockable one. So
Oh, mine is a lockable one.
Well,
I
yes.
can only have mine in work. I can't be hopping on trains with it.
Yeah. Yeah, and just little bits and pieces, little bulldog clips. What else have I got? Some little, can't remember what you call spigots. Got a selection of spigots with different adapters, different thread adapters on there.
Yeah, because that can catch you out. You've got the like, 1/4 inch and you need like an 1/8 or something.
Yeah. I've always got a set of lights in my car as well, just in case. You never know.
Yep.
I've got 3 lights always in the boot of the car. Some stands, tripod head, tether cables. It's more sort of digi side, but I usually got a couple of tether cables in there just in case. Also bring my MacBook as well.
Yeah.
Again, just in case.
And we started setting you up on a Capture One pilot, haven't we? So you can test the shots.
Yeah, iPad with Capture Pilot, which is quite useful because if you pay the extra fee, you can fire the shutter as well, which is quite handy on a set. I can be around the back of the set and just fire it from there and see the results. I've started to use Capture One as well from a Digijet point of view, which is... It's okay, but I don't know if I would miss the creativity side of just being a digi. I don't know.
Yeah, it's sat still for a lot of the day. But a lot of digis lighting assist as well.
Yes, yeah.
Liam that we used in Johnson & Johnson's, he also was also a really good photographer as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I think everybody on set is also a photographer.
Yeah.
There's nobody. I don't know. I have worked with one guy who is a professional assistant.
Yeah.
And he doesn't shoot at all.
Oh.
Which is really rare. I thought, I've never seen anyone else like that.
Yeah. I don't think you can have like with the digi who isn't a photographer, because you still need to understand what's coming in and how it can be fixed. You can't just sit there looking and think, oh, that looks a bit wrong with that shadow. You still need to be able to go, oh, Scott, by the way.
Yeah, by the way, mate. Yeah, and that's a good point, actually. How often do you point out to me my mistakes during a shoot?
Quite often.
Yeah.
I think not because you're not paying attention more. You've got a creative, you're working on the creative side. You know what the client wants, going for a certain look. So you're focusing on one part of the image, and I'll be going, oh, by the way, there's that bit sticking out there, or there's a chunk missing off there.
Yeah.
Again, food stylists will look at that side as well, or stylists. But yeah, sometimes it's saying, that bit looks great, but I think we need to move this that way a little bit.
Yeah, because I get feedback from the Digitech, Paul, the food stylist, the art director, the creative director, and the client, and then I have to kind of read all of that information, make an assessment on which bits do and don't need changing and whether they'll impact. So Paul might be like, oh, by the way, this is sticking up here, but somebody else might be saying, oh, we're going to do this, so I need to work out, do we go, well, we can't do that because we're going to do this, or do we go, well, that is right, Paul, but actually it's not going to matter in 5 minutes' time. And it's kind of like balancing all that information, which is a weird thing that you don't do when you're starting out in photography, because it's just you and your opinion.
Yeah.
And then you come to a big set and there's a lot of opinions, and it's down to you to just drill into it and work out which bits need sorting. And it's so easy to miss something. Like Paul will notice something like, there's a gap at the bottom of the set. And I'll be like, right, that is actually going to be a nightmare to fix in post, but he can move it in 2 seconds. Or, it's all this sort of...
Yeah, I think on the Johnson & Johnson one, we had a nightmare on, I think it was just one shot with a bottle, I don't know if it was bubble bath, with gold lettering on it.
Oh, yeah.
And it took us 3 lights with some black cine foil, plus the extra, the 6 lights we already had up.
Yeah.
That was an absolute...
I'll see if I can get that to pop up on the screen if I can. Yeah. That was a nightmare job.
Yeah,
but that shot of the job was
just... shooting through trace as well. And
hard light with diffusion, the joys. Yeah. That was tough. And there's lots of like, what about this, what about that? And I've got, clients asking for one set of information. It gets very difficult. But then that's your job as a photographer, is to read all the information you're being given and make decisions based on it. And you need the information. So even when you're telling somebody, oh, that doesn't matter, you need to make sure they keep feeding back other stuff, because just because it doesn't matter that time doesn't mean it doesn't matter in 10 minutes time. It's always moving and it's fluid, and it's balancing budgets, time, and outcome.
Yeah. It's like say, oh, I want this light on there, and sometimes I have to point out, oh, but if we do that, it's going to affect this. So it might be easier to do it that way.
Yeah, because often I can get quite fixated on like, oh, we need this now. And you'll be like, well, Scott, if we do that now, it's going to take us half an hour and we're going to have to go back to this anyway. So I've got some questions from the community.
Okay.
So first one is, I almost covered this in a way, but not fully just then, but do you make creative suggestions?
Yes, but I think you have to be careful not to put too much input there because the client's employing Scott for the creative vision. So I try not to input too much, but if it's going to improve the shot, I'll say, oh, Scott, maybe if we do this. But it's more a case of it's down to me to, Scott has a vision and then for me to create that look.
Yeah.
But occasionally, I think I have maybe said, oh, Scott, maybe if we, do it from lower down or higher or, maybe we shoot it this way. But not so much. It's more, I think the assistant's job is more to create your vision.
And always out of earshot of the client.
Oh, yes. There's nothing in front of the client.
Yeah. There's nothing worse than an assistant who gives ideas in front of a client. And because sometimes there's a reason why we've not done it a certain way, and it might be a time or budget restraint.
Yeah.
And then the client's like, oh, that does sound good.
Yeah. It's like giving your business card to the client as an assistant. It's not a good thing.
Yeah, no, quite. Now, obviously, the work I do is very different to the work you do outside of you assisting me. Would you want to do the work I do?
Possibly. But what I quite like about the work I do at the moment, it's quite stress-free.
And how would you describe the stress levels of my work?
Oh, yeah. You probably go through about 20, 30 times more coffee than I do. The stress part of my job, after when you're shooting dance or sport or, you've got one chance to do it. Same with the graduations, as a grad goes across the stage, you've got one opportunity to get that picture and get a decent picture of them. You don't get a second go. So there is that part, which I've always liked, same with weddings.
Yeah.
One thing I liked about weddings was you're under pressure to get that shot. You can't reshoot the wedding.
The first kiss happens once. Yeah.
So I quite like that, but it's not so much of a... if I do miss a shot of a grad going across the stage, it's one shot out of maybe 400 people.
Yeah.
And it does happen. You can get distracted sometimes or fall asleep. Not happened yet, but close. But in this job, if you make a mistake, that could be career ending.
Yeah.
That's it's if you mess up a shoot, when you're talking sort of figures on one of your shoots, that's a big thing to mess that up.
Yes, it's when the lawyers come in.
Yeah,
and your career goes down the pan.
Yeah, so if I make a mistake, it's oh, Paul, you missed that one. I may miss a £10 sale on a print. That's as far as my stress levels go. Financially, yes, I would love to do this. Do what you do.
Yeah,
from a financial point of view. But then at the same time, I know sort of figures you get coming in, but I also know how much you spend getting that shot as well.
Oh yeah, like there's no expense spared in some of these.
Yeah.
There's been the odd job where my paycheck has not been great by the end of it.
Yeah.
And then which leads to another question, which is the bit which British people don't like to talk about. So someone asked, do you get like a split of the budget? Do you get a salary, or do you get a set fee, or is it a different fee every time, or how does it work?
It's normally a set fee on a freelance basis. Sometimes it changes depending on the budget. If the budget doesn't allow it, I'll take a lower fee. But normally it's a set price. And I think pretty much industry standard across the UK. It's not a huge amount, but it's more than what I would earn doing my other stuff.
So I think we pay everyone, because I don't know if you know this, but the London rate is higher than the non-London rate.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And we pay everyone the London rate.
Yeah.
Because although we're not in London, we are a London agency.
Yeah.
So the budgets don't get shared. There's no
No, it's not a percentage of a...
No. On the flip side, whenever we do have extra money, it always goes to the assistants, and we never mark up assistants.
Yeah.
Because an assistant is the lowest day rate on set.
Yeah.
And it just seems a bit ripe adding money on top of their fee to skim off it.
Yeah.
I know people do, but I have a very strict policy that if we're marking up an assistant at a higher rate, they get the higher rate.
Right, yeah.
Because that you guys work the hardest, like physically, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, stylists as well. Actually, they put in a.
Yeah, I think
I don't know. That might be hard push. Maybe the stylists work the hardest. They have.
Yeah, I think because
they're non-stop.
Yeah. When we had especially with food.
Yeah,
you just see them
brutal.
constantly cutting food, cooking it, prepping it, and then that's they can be spending an hour before the product even gets onto the set.
Do you have a step counter that you look at on set?
I've got on my watch. I've got one.
But how much do you normally do on a day's shoot? Do you know?
15.
15,000.
So
I know how many I do.
Digi does about 10.
Digi does 10 steps. I know the food stylists do about 25,000. And I do between 2,000 and 3,000. But I'm still shattered.
Yeah. It's all that.
Well, I don't impress the button anymore, do I? If you went for a job interview and ignore all the other work you do, I assume you were just my assistant, that's all you did, and you went for a job interview outside of the industry, what would you tell them you did?
Oh. What, completely outside the photography industry?
Yeah, they didn't even know this existed.
I'd probably, little white lie and say I was a commercial photographer.
That's fair enough. I'd go with that. It's quite difficult because I have people all the time going, what do you do for a job? I'm like, I take pictures.
Yeah.
It's quite hard to go, well, actually, what I do is this, because they won't understand it. And it's a strange thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Last question from the community is, how would you get into assisting? Or more specifically, if somebody wanted to assist me, what would they need to do to get on the roster?
Well, I don't think it'd be worth them sort of sending a portfolio of pictures to you because you're not interested in their creative ideas.
No, yeah.
It's technical ability. I think initially, if they could somehow sort of blag their way into the studio, even on a free, if you're doing a test shoot or something, say, look, can I come and help? See how things work and prove it that way. Because you need to be able to prove their technical ability. And you can't really do that but say, I took this picture.
It's like great.
That's great. Yeah, you've used a couple of lights and that. It's if they're in here and you say, I want it to look like that. Can you set that up and see how they cope from there? I think there's a couple of questions you could ask them before they get to that point. There was a classic question. We had a phone call on a job. We needed an assistant desperately. And we rang him up. And the first thing I said, if we need... He was quite annoyed over the question, to be fair. But we did them out. And said, we want a hard shadow. Where would you put the light? Closer or further away? And he got it wrong. And so he didn't... That was like, okay, cheers, bye. So it's proving you need to be able to prove their technical knowledge. Their creative side is not really.
No,
he's not interested in that.
Not at all in this sense.
Yeah,
and I think one of the other good things on all of my sets, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but everyone's always nice.
Yes,
it's always you'd always go for a beer afterwards with everyone. Like there's never a dickhead in the room apart from me. I'm like, if I'm the photographer, I'm allowed to be the dickhead. I think everyone's always.
You've got to be a personal person.
People
person, because there's a lot of people to get on with. Some of the people can be, from everything from an assistant to an assistant to you might have the MD of a multinational company.
Exactly.
In there, and you've got to be able to deal with those sort of people.
And there's nothing worse than an assistant pissing off the client. That is, that's you never get hired again.
No.
Once you've upset one of the clients, you're not coming back. Have we had any assistants that we've got rid of? I've sent home assistants before.
I think we had one we wanted to get rid of, but he was part of the studio, so we didn't really have a lot of choice.
We've had a few like that where we've been supplied with crew and we couldn't get rid of them. But also, I think we've only had the odd one that I'm like, they're never coming back again. And it's something like work ethic or like personality. Well, they can all be good photographers in their own right. There's nothing stopping them being a good photographer. It's just.
From my point of view, if someone turns up late, that's the last time.
My pet peeve. If the shoot starts at 8, you should be here at 7:45. Like if you turn up at 5 to 8, you're late.
Of the way I look at it, if you turn up on time, you're late.
That's
I'm early for everything, absolutely everything.
Yeah,
in fact, I
and
get quite
that's-
stressed if I'm due at a job at 8:00 and I'm in traffic at half 7. I'm getting stressed. Like, no.
Because we've all got the portable coffee machines. You got me onto these.
Yes.
So we get places. I'm normally the first person on set, I think.
Yeah.
And
Do you like to get there and almost sort of like chill for a bit?
yeah, I have my coffee in my car.
Yeah.
Sit there in my old car, smelling of like whiskey and cigars on the interior still somehow.
Yeah.
I made my own whiskey and cigar air fresheners if you want some.
ooh.
Yeah, it's
Oh.
quite. I'll show you later. Let's sit there, wait for everyone to turn up, and I'm not the last to leave though, unless we're shooting in my place. I think I have to make a quick getaway at the end of a shoot.
Yeah.
Do I leave you to pack up sometimes? You've done most of your shoots here, haven't you, with me actually?
Yeah.
I've not done many in London together.
No.
'Cause you're always busy when we get the London jobs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do like to make a swift exit to the
I
pub.
think you need to though sometimes, don't you? Get out there and leave the...
Yeah, I normally take the client
Leave
to
the
the pub
house
straight
tidy up.
afterwards. And it sounds awful. But I do remember on my first ever big job, it was a worldwide campaign, and it was the first time I'd made so much money I didn't know what to do with it. Because normally I'm like, I'll buy this. I'm like, this is so much, I can't even spend it. I got told off by my producer back then, different producer to who I have now, for helping unload the kit. And they're like, do not be seen dead carrying the boxes in, because if the client sees you carrying stuff, it devalues you.
Yeah.
I was like, well, what the hell do I do? It's like, you go and make pretty with the client, and have a nice chit chat.
Yeah.
You know, and I find that quite difficult. I'm like, right, can everyone move all this stuff from here to there?
Yeah.
And you feel a little bit like,
Yeah.
I could easily carry that, but...
Yeah. I mean, sort of jobs here, you know, at the end of it, I'll be putting stuff back to pretty much how it is now. Everything, you know, is in its place. And Scott will be having a coffee with the client, but
Or a beer.
or a beer, normally a beer.
Yeah,
but
do like
that's,
a post.
but that's what
post-shoot
he's
beer.
getting paid for, and that's what I'm getting paid for.
Yeah.
You know, it's that's how it is.
Yeah. Anything to add before we wrap up?
Good question.
Put you on the spot now.
Yeah,
You've got to
you
think of
have.
something good.
Yeah, I got to think of something.
Any parting words of wisdom for budding photographers?
Don't do it. No, I would say if you know, keep going. I think this secret, certainly with commercial photography, is hard work. Is putting in the hours, putting in the work. I didn't do that back in the day when we got into the studio for the portrait. I know that, and that's why Scott ended up on it by himself. But Scott is one of the hardest working photographers I know. Guy doesn't stop. I think you hear the weekends as well.
Yep.
Every day, weekends, doing the YouTube channel. But constantly working. I think that's what you need to do. It's, you can earn some good money, but it's bloody hard work.
Yeah, and I think I was skint for a decade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a quick fix. You know, you're not going to get anywhere taking pictures of half naked women.
No.
Probably even shooting weddings, you're not going to make a lot of money. Probably 10, 15 years ago, there was a couple of photographers making a lot of money, a couple of Australian photographers making a lot. But I think commercial is where the money is. But you've got to have an agent, but you've got to be good enough to get an agent. And it's basically putting the work in. It's hard work. I've seen it.
Yeah. You saw me when I had black hair.
Yes.
And then I lost my hair. It's going back.
Yeah.
Look at that. It was it grew back.
Yeah. And he's only 21.
I know. Look at that. See this? The visage. Yeah. Amazing. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you all next episode. And we're going to have maybe my agent in, maybe my producer, maybe my TV producer in. We don't know. We'll see.
Ooh.
See how it goes. Or
That'd be interesting with your agent then.
yeah.
An interesting one.
Yeah, you can tell me all the bad qualities I have. Amazing. We'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.
Cheers.